Hello, everyone. In this opinion piece, I'm going to talk about BRICS, Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa. There was a lot of excitement about BRICS when the number of countries involved in BRICS expanded and the acronym became too small to accommodate all the countries, so they just kept on calling it BRICS. There was a lot of excitement, as I said, and so here I discuss two questions. First, is BRICS an unified emerging power set of countries in this century, or is it simply an ill assorted combination of countries that have very little in common, except perhaps they don't like the dominance of the United States? So that's the first question. And the second question is, of what use is BRICS to India? So that's the second question. Let's get to the first question. Is it an emerging power set, or is it just a collection of countries that don't have much in common? I think the answer is somewhere in between, but it is much closer to the second part, an ill assorted set of countries that don't have much in common except perhaps their dislike of US dominance. Now, it's very hard to imagine that there's much in common between South Africa and Russia on a practical level, or between India and Brazil on a practical level. It isn't there. In any case, after the initial excitement about BRICS, by the way, BRICS started as BRIC, a term coined on Wall Street to simply talk about four economies: Brazil, Russia, India, and China. And then the S was added later on for South Africa, perhaps to get a geographic balance. And so there was a lot of excitement about it. And India also was interested and excited. And one of the first concrete things was to set up a new bank, a new international bank which would lend money like the World Bank. It's headquartered in China, but an Indian was made the head of it. It's called the New Development Bank. Nobody's heard much about it ever since because China set up its own bank, and the New Development Bank became just a footnote. It doesn't have enough money and it has no power. The World Bank is big, continues to be big. China's AAIB is big and will remain big. The New Development Bank is just a footnote, nothing more. And then the whole discussion about BRICS settled down into mundane activities, nothing much exciting or interesting, till I think, and this is just my opinion, China decided that it would see if it could use BRICS as a way to push its own agenda. And China's agenda is economic and geopolitical, both. I won't talk about the geopolitical part, but I think you know it. They want to advance their role on the world stage. Economic agenda, of course, is to have economic dominance throughout the world as much as possible, given that they are close to the US in total GDP, though far below in per capita income, and perhaps the GDP is more than of the US if you measure it in purchasing power parity terms. So basically, as I see it, it is a China driven agency and when you are China driven, there's not much in common that you have except that you think, okay, let's see if China can become the second pole in the world, multipolar world. But I don't think that there's much hope for it because many of those countries that have joined the BRICS are also quite dependent on the US. So, as I see it, BRICS is certainly not an emerging force. There was a lot of talk about, well, the expanded BRICS has such a large share of the world's GDP. Why can't they have their own currency, common currency? Now, anyone who has the slightest understanding of the ground reality or is an economist or both knows that such disparate countries cannot have a common currency because having a common currency essentially means giving up a key part of your political sovereignty. It's not something that you can give up easily. When you give it up, you lose a lot. And so a common currency is not a joke. Common currency has a very high political as well as economic meaning. For example, Greece joined the euro, and then when Greece was in macroeconomic trouble, it didn't have its own currency. It could not devalue it. And devaluation is one of the key economic tools to get out of a macroeconomic crisis. And it doesn't have its own interest rates. So it couldn't even say, look, I'm going to increase interest rates or I'm going to cut down interest rates like RBI does in India because they don't have a bank anymore. It's the European Central Bank. So common currency is not a joke. It means giving up a lot of your political and nationalistic sovereignty. So you may say we have so much of GDP of the world, but it's not something that you are going to readily do. Now, what about India? The second question. Well, India's foreign minister quickly nipped the idea of a common currency, partly because Trump, even though he was not yet sworn in, threatened any country that would try to reduce the role of the dollar. And India's foreign minister quickly fell in line and said, no, 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 we are not going in for de dollarization. Well, that's good. Actually, what India should go for is to make the rupee an international currency. Okay, so that we have a targeted goal, maybe by 2047, maybe by 2040. That depends. India should have the rupee as an international currency. That should be India's goal, not to have become a part of a common BRICS currency. BRICS doesn't offer India much. Instead, I would say India should focus on its neighborhood. We should have leadership in our neighborhood. And by leadership, I mean that our economy is such and our political situation is such that we are not just ahead of others, but others look up to us. Right now, we don't have good relations with most of our countries. And let me provide you with a different acronym other than BRICS. I call it BIB-SNAP. Bangladesh, India, Bhutan. That's BIB. SNAP, Sri Lanka, Nepal, Afghanistan, and Pakistan. And you can add the Maldives, so plus M. BIB SNAP plus M. That's where our focus should be, so that we don't allow China to get into these countries, which is already there in Sri Lanka and Pakistan and surrounding us. So instead of BRICS, let's go for BIB SNAP plus M. Now, some people call it South Asia. But I don't feel South Asian. And I don't know anybody who feels South Asian. And I have no idea where is North Asia. Perhaps it's there somewhere. But I've never heard of any region being called North Asia. So I find South Asia a good term for geography, perhaps. But for cultural, social, political purposes, South Asia is not a useful term. Instead, I would say, let's call it Desi. Everybody knows what's Desi. Even the countries that aren't friendly to us in the neighborhood, they know that they feel Desi. We know what Desi means. So I would say, give up BRICS, go for Desi countries, BIPSNAP plus M. Okay, that's it for today. I'll be back soon with another opinion. Till then, bye.